Kit Daniels, Infowars.com. If you don't know who I am, I typically write articles for the website, and you can find me on Twitter at KitDaniels1776 and on Facebook with the same username. I also do a lot of video reports on Resistance News, Infowars Resistance News. So if you're not following that, you should. Go ahead. And a lot of stuff I want to talk about this morning, it is 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, is Jeb Bush. And how the media has been kind of propping up his dead campaign. I mean, the guy's like 6th, 7th in the polls, and yet the media is acting like he's still a front runner. So it's really a microcosm of how the establishment puts in there these puppet candidates like Jeb Bush that nobody wants, no one cares about, and yet we're expected to think that, they're the front runners and what have you. So we're going to go a little bit in that. And also, Rob Jacobson, who's been a long-time Alex Jones video editor, done Follow the Republic, Police State 4, Rise of FEMA, and Endgame. He's going to be joining me as well to talk about this and more. And something else I'd like to talk about is the nature of our reality. Because I was on a Washington Post a couple of days ago about, I think it was like some humanists wrote an article about people are like leaving religions. Why are we still subsidizing that through 501c3s, even though technically that's not really subsidizing, that's government control, but I digress. Well, one thing, is I've seen these articles that are about religion on the mainstream media. There's always, on the comment section, there's always like this debate between atheists and Christians and this and that. And to me, that's a false dilemma because, it's like this false left-right paradigm, Republicans, Democrat, red team versus blue team, Coke versus Pepsi, Ford versus Chevy. Because, the nature of reality, for all we know, the universe could be like a computer simulation. We could be living in Plato's cave. So, that leaves a lot of room for both science and God. So we're going to be talking about that. And Rob Jacobson's in the studio. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, Kit. Thanks for having me this morning. I'm enjoying the money bomb. How about yourself?
Good. Yeah, just early morning.
Yeah, it sure is.
So you got a lot of interesting views on Jeb Bush.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us a little about that?
Well, I kind of feel that Jeb, like a lot of people have been, as a preface here, a lot of people have been saying that Hillary is going to be the chosen one. She's already been selected, so on and so forth. And apparently it appears that way because of her kind of shoo-in nature. She has it all set up, ready to go, except for this email scandal. It looked like she had the red carpet walking right in. However, I had the opposite point of view. I thought it was Jeb, and I still do think it's Jeb that's the chosen person because of a few reasons. One, he has older ties with these older European networks.
As well as the CIA and what have you.
Including the CIA, all the intelligence networks, and the banking, the bankers, including Goldman Sachs, got behind Jeb Bush, which is a very big indicator that while Hillary might be a major player in the major league way, Jeb might be the pick.
Well, what's really a major indicator for me is Jeb Bush is 6th, 7th in the polls. No one cares about him. He's been practically outside the political arena for 10, 15 years. I don't even remember when was the last time he was governor. He's practically, except for his last name, he's a nobody.
More or less,
politically,
yes.
Yeah. And yet, you see, I think I saw in Breitbart where they were, he met with select media before the debate to kind of try to spin if he had a dismal debate, kind of spin into good news.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, you got the media, kind of like laptop media, that's just kind of backing for him.
Exactly. He's like in the spotlight undeservedly for no good reason. And, well, there is a good reason. It's because the banks, the money people, they basically own all these stations and they're putting their guy forward. And it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think it was Jim Marrs who said that when he was working as a journalist for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram back in the 80s. He was reading one of those newsletters that employees get. And it said that we were happy to announce that William Casey, who was the owner of the newspaper and a bunch of newspapers at the time, was just selected to be the next head of the CIA under Reagan. That's very telling. You have the head of the CIA who runs a bunch of newspapers.
Exactly. And that's how they've always done it. Yeah. They've done it for decades after decades.
Operation Mockingbird.
Right. And so sort of like Dr. Stan Monteith said, it's kind of a controversial statement, but it's something that really lends a lot of credibility to thought. and that is we have a quote-unquote free press in this country, which leaves it free to leave any bit of news out as well that they want. So when you have a monopoly that owns all of the media, all of the spectrum, they have the right.
It's what like 6 corporations own 90% of the media?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so if we had 50 or 100 corporations, it would be a little bit more difficult for these large corporations to just remove large sections of the news. But now that they dominate everything, they have the freedom to just, that's not news, and it's out, and that's it. So they've done this for decades, and if they want their players, and obviously Hillary is the same way. I don't know anybody, not a single person that endorses or likes Hillary. I don't know. The only people I know are these mystical faces that I see on TV that are arguing for her. I don't know a single person, but yet there she is. I don't think there has been a more scandalous person during an election than Hillary Clinton, but there she is number one. The entire Democratic Party is postponing debates because she doesn't want to be in them.
It's very telling when you got the head of the DNC like just hugging her and saying, we're not going to have any debates until like November or whenever.
Yeah, look, a scandalous woman like this who has a trail of dead bodies behind her shouldn't be a number one important.
I actually got to meet her last year, right? Remember right before you and me went on that trip down in the South Texas to cover the border? Right. The day before was like a Friday, and Hillary was here in Austin to visit at Book People to do a book signing over downtown Austin. And so we stood in line, me and David Knight, we stood in line. It was weren't really that many people there. I mean, I've been to Ron Paul events that are way, way bigger than that. And I imagine even Bernie Sanders events. If Bernie Sanders came to book sign in Austin, I hate to say it, but he'd have way more people than Hillary did. Well, actually, I don't really hate to say that. But but yeah, so I got to meet her. And, it's like I told Alex this on air because we were on air the next Sunday. And it was like meeting her was kind of like that scene in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes into that cave in Dagobah and he encounters Darth Vader. That's literally what it felt like to me. It was just like, it was weird. I don't know how to explain it. I just had a chill up my spine.
Man, I have a chill up my spine just thinking about standing online to meet her.
Yeah.
The woman is frightening, and she's a frightening woman. She literally has, here's an old woman with a trail of dead bodies behind her.
Yeah, literally.
And she's running for president, and she's the front runner. Here's what I'm saying to the Democratic National Convention. If she doesn't want to debate, fine. Just carry the debates on, but they cancel the debate because she doesn't want to debate. What does that even mean? If she doesn't want to debate, fine, she's out. But they're going to postpone. I don't even see how that's a logical or not a telling move on behalf of the establishment. Yet at the same time, as much push, I still think the pick of the actual globalists, the entire whatever, the conglomeration of all the globalist societies, the elitists, the Bilderbergs, I think that the choice is Jeb. It's not an election.
There's two things I noticed is you got kind of like, even within the globalists are kind of divided. They kind of get civil wars at time. Right now what we see is we kind of have this old guard with the Clintons, but then we also see this new guard with Obama and even Biden, I would think. So they kind of have this infighting going on. But at the same time, you also have Jeb Bush, and he serves the same interests as Hillary Clinton. So it doesn't matter if Hillary, to the globalists, that Hillary gets burnt on the stake. Destroys her career because they still got Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush is, he's part of this old established family. And the other thing is, a lot of people say that Hillary might be a loose cannon to them. Here's a scandalous criminal woman who may not want to go along with the program. I believe it was Joel Skousen who said she may actually believe herself to be the president.
She probably thinks she's already president.
Right, exactly. So she may maybe not want to do a couple of things that the higher ups of her position may request of her.
Well, just think of it this way: it's like she's almost thinks that she's president with all the email scandal. She acts like she's already above the law. Please. Just imagine what she'd be like if she was president.
Right now, you ask Chelsea the wrong question, they delete your video from your phone. You get tackled at the bookstore. You just ask her Chelsea, what do you think about your mom running for president? Whoa, you're getting tackled at the bookstore. And this woman wants to run for president. Could you imagine the level of Obama's security team was over the top. It was like 75, secured cars that would follow him. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny to me. If people ask me what the globalists are, what's the New World Order and this and that, the best way kind of I think to define it is that the New World Order really represents neo-feudalism. They want to take us back to the kind of feudalist days right before the Renaissance.
Exactly. I mean, that is, we actually talk about that in our film Endgame, how the New World Order is the old world order. Mm-hmm. That's exactly their plan. They want a feudal system. I don't think they've ever believed the feudal system has ever truly ended. It just sort of got compromised by some sort of, American experiment.
Yeah.
And now they want it all back for themselves. They believe there should be a rightful aristocracy class, and there should be, financing class right underneath that, mm-hmm. that serves the aristocracy's
the Federal Reserve System is just a new style of serfdom.
Exactly. And then there's
probably even worse.
Yeah, then there's the serfdom, which is all of us.
And what's interesting to me is I read a book once about the serfdom back, I think, in Western Europe. And then also, I think Eastern Europe they had a serfdom later on. But what was really telling to me was that serfs, they were born in one place, and then they lived and died within a mile of where they were born. They hardly ever traveled. Same thing with deer. I mean, white-tailed deer here in Texas, they say the same thing. Deer usually don't leave a mile from where they were born. Mm-hmm. And and the reason I bring this up is it's like Agenda 21. Neo-feudalism. They want you kind of contained in this little coffin apartment, it's like a 2-3-story condo with residential below, and they want to get you out of the car. They want you to ride a bicycle. Mm-hmm. They want you controlled, just like back in the day, where you don't even you typically won't even go further than a couple of miles from your neighborhood.
Of course. I mean, look at all these plans that they have for Agenda 21. They want to start the Trans-Pacific Corridor. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, the North American Corridor, excuse me. And what is that all about? That's about limiting transportation and making it selective just for an elite class that can move their stuff from port all over the country and limit our own access to the same exact transportation, which will keep us in our little ways. And they're also promoting stuff like, other things, like they're trying to, or at least they used to try to wall off cities and all these other schemes to basically keep people stay put.
Yeah, absolutely. Briefly, I was at a bar a couple of years ago here in Austin, and a bartender kind of told me, he's like, hey, I used to listen to the show, but I kind of felt helpless about it at all, so I stopped listening. I get that a lot because I get people that are like, well, we know about what's going on, but what can we do about, what kind of solutions? Personally, I can't stop the globalists. I can't stop Jeb Bush. I can't stop Hillary Clinton all by myself. But one thing I will tell you is the fact that by learning about all this stuff, my life has improved tremendously. For example, I stopped, taking fluoride. I've got a fluoride filter for my water. My head started getting clearer, less foggy. Before, when I was on fluoride and all this other garbage they put in food, I can't even remember stuff that happened to me 5-10 years ago. It's just a haze. It's almost like it was a previous life. But, once I learned about listening to this program, listening about how to stop drinking fluoride and GMOs and whatnot, I cleaned up my diet. And so that definitely improved. And, I stopped using a cell phone with holding it up to my hair. I started using a earpiece. And also, I stopped using cell phones, internet right before bed, because from this broadcast, I learned that it kind of screws with your pineal gland and keeps you from having good night's sleep. So that's also as well. So this is something I think you'd appreciate, Jacobson. This is one of my favorite quotes from Carl Jung. He said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What do you think about that?
I think that goes along with the whole Carl Jungian theory of exploring your unconscious, learning who your shadow self is, so on and so forth. You'll never know who you truly are unless you explore the dark side of yourself and bring it to light.
Well, I'm bringing it up because to me, I take the quoting further than that. It's like I see that as being conscious of the darkness of the New World Order, the globalists, the world itself. So, and this is probably about the first media operation I've ever been around that's kind of taken on the New World Order, the globalists, what have you. So if you would, please support us. Try to get us back on satellite. And we're running a bunch of specials right now. Free shipping for duration, the money bomb. We got sales from like 15 to 20% off. Survival Shield, Super Male Vitality, 20% off Brain Force, 15% off Deep Cleanse, Secret 12, Oxy Powder. All these are products I've used personally, and I would definitely recommend. I mean, like Survival Shield, I mean, when I started taking it, I had a tremendous boost in energy, as well as Super Male. And Brain Force, like right now when I take Brain Force, I can't, it's like almost like I can think without having to think. It's like just thoughts come to me automatically. So, it's a product I really definitely recommend. So moving on, Jacobson, the real reason I brought you in here is, well, first, when I think about it, let's keep going on with Jeb Bush. The way I describe Jeb Bush is kind of like Weekend at Bernie's, where it's like it's like he's got a dead candidacy, and yet the media is just propping him up along, taking his body and putting him up on podium.
God, and yeah, not only lifeless candidacy, lifeless almost. I mean, the guy is like uncharismatic as it could get.
Oh yeah,
he's sort of.
He even looks coached. It's like it looks like he just got out of a class on how to public speaking at college. He doesn't look comfortable. He just like teleprompter.
Oh yeah. He even said when I believe it was the first debate, is anybody nervous? He was the first to jump. I am, the first one to jump out and reveal that he actually was. He does look like they all talk about his campaign strategy, and he's sitting right outside the door listening in like, can I come in yet, guys? Not yet, Jeb. We're not discussing what you're going to do. It does look like that. And there he is as the front runner. He's center stage every single.
Yeah, it's like the media is like telling us he's a front runner, but he's really not.
Right, exactly. It's like we're supposed to believe it. Again, I don't know anybody who's really serious about voting for Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody passionate about Jeb.
Now, let's talk briefly a little bit about Donald Trump, the real front runner that people will vote for. He was on yesterday. He was talking about vaccines. They brought up the vaccine issue. And what I think Dave and I really appreciated this was the fact that he said that, it's like we're pumping all these babies up with vaccines. Even if the vaccines are good, it's like, why are we pumping up all these babies like they're a horse?
That's true. I think Trump made a big move by putting that issue on the national stage. There's no taking that back. Everybody heard it. And he put it out there. So kudos to him. If he's going to have that kind of exposure, might as well say some good words as well as whatever else he's going to say.
We got that clip, right, guys? All right. Yeah, just 1 second. They got the clip of Trump and talking about the vaccine debate yesterday. All right, if we go ahead and play that.
Hey, let's go to what they're saying right now, because Donald Trump is making an epic statement about the connection of autism and vaccines.
And I've seen it, and I had my children taken care of over a long period of time, over a 2 or 3 year period of time, same exact amount. But you take this little beautiful baby and you pump. I mean, it looks just like it's meant for a horse, not for a child. And we've had so many instances, people that worked for me just the other day, 2 years old, 2.5 years old, a child, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick.
This is
now
great.
Is autistic.
He's doing a great job.
I only say
thank you, Donald.
I'm in favor of vaccines.
I gotta say
do them
thank
over a
you for
longer
this.
period of time, same amount.
Excellent.
Thank you. Just in little
And that's what I said earlier. I agree on that.
Excellent.
I think you're going to see a big impact on autism.
Dr. Carson, you're going to hear Ben Carson jump in.
Nailed it.
Good job. He didn't backtrack. I like that.
That's right.
He's an okay doctor.
Oh, yeah. Trust me because I'm a doctor. Come on. I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't hear that. I can read the stuff myself, Dr. Ben Carson.
Right.
Read the Constitution, jerk, if you're going to run for president.
There's no autism associated with vaccinations. But it is true that
documented proof by our paid-off scientists, paid off by Big Pharma.
Now recognize that, and I think are cutting down on the number and the proximity in which those are done.
And
I
that's
think
all I'm saying, Jake. That's all I'm saying.
Well, now they're saying autism is caused by
hey, let's understand
one after the other.
Yeah, let's understand we have such a thing called informed consent unless we're their slaves, too.
One of the greatest medical discoveries of all time were the vaccines, particularly for smallpox. And if you want to read a story, it's called The Speckled Monster. It's an amazing story. It was all done voluntarily, but people came in by the droves. George Washington wouldn't let his wife visit until she got vaccinated. So I'm all for vaccines, but I'm also for freedom. I'm also a little concerned about how they're bunched up. My kids had all of their vaccines, and even if the science doesn't say bunching them up's a problem, I ought to have the right to spread my vaccines out a little bit at the very least.
That's right.
All right,
informed consent.
Coming up, Jake.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Governor Huckabee, please.
That's the point. You know what? I disagree with Rand Paul on vaccines, but he nailed it because as a president, what his responsibility is not to decide, even if he is a doctor, his responsibility is not to decide what's the best for us and make us do it.
Right.
It's his responsibility to make sure he maintains our freedom to make that decision.
It's my job as a person to decide if I want to have a beer, if I decide if I want to go smoke pot, if I want to take a vaccination. It's up to me to decide what goes in my body.
That's right.
Not some president, not some dictator who thinks they can tell me what I can or can't do.
That's
it
right.
should be up to me. That's the freedom. That's what America's supposed to be about.
And just like Carson admitted, he's like, yeah, maybe we should space them out a little bit more. But what about all the people who took them before that, who are suffering the ill effects of having these things bang, bang, bang come through in such a tight.
And you're not going to hear all these people who are now singing the praises of vaccines, even Rand Paul and Huckabee. You're not going to hear them talking about when they talk about polio. You're not going to hear them talking about SV40, simian virus number 40. Which was put into the vaccines, adulterating the vaccines, exactly causing, and they admitted this, causing cancer. They still continued to use it even after they knew they'd contaminated the vaccines with it.
All right, that was a clip of Donald Trump talking about the vaccines with the at the presidential debate at the Reagan Library last night. And what I like about it is you got the vaccine debate that's now a political, it's back in the forefront of politics. It's definitely a presidential issue. Now, Rob Jackson, what do you think about that?
Like I said, it's great that they put it at the center stage. It's good that Trump talked about that during the debate. I also agree with what David Knight said. His commentary was right on the ball. If we're mandated to take vaccines, as Carson suggests, it's a medical tyranny. I mean, that's not what this country's about.
It's all about control. It's like my problem is even if the vaccines are good, and a lot of times they're not, only because they put all these additives in the vaccines that are deadly.
Yeah, it's unthinkable that they would mandate that you put something in your veins.
Yeah, but it goes right back to the serfdom we were talking about in the feudalism. It's like if they're mandating that you put all this stuff in your body, I mean, you're a slave.
Yeah, whose body is it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like they're worried about the whole thing about, oh, well, you got to take the vaccines to stop pandemics from happening, this and that. What about the pandemic of the government? The largest murder in world history has always been governments. I think of what the whole democide is like, 250 million people in the past couple centuries?
Yeah, probably more. Way more in the past couple of centuries. And if the vaccine thing passes where it's mandatory, that number is just going to skyrocket again, which is their goal. Yeah. It's their objective.
It's just all about making money. It's like you got the big pharma that...
It's about making money and basically reducing populations on a engineered scale. I mean, that's what they engineer, try to hurt people. It's what they're into. That's what they try to do. Is they're into it, and they're relentless. And maybe Ben Carson is part of this. Maybe he doesn't understand. Maybe he's just, I'm a doctor, and he doesn't know much about the Constitution and what civil liberties really mean. Or maybe he knows very well what he's engaging in. Either which way, should that man's agenda be put into action, a lot more people will die and get very, very ill from these vaccines. And I say this because of their past performance of killing people and making people very, very sick.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the reason I requested you right now is I kind of want to talk about kind of the nature of reality. You know, I saw this clip that Philip K. Dick, a couple of years before he died, he was at a science fiction convention, and he claimed that a lot of the ideas he got for a lot of his stories was because he kind of felt like he was living in a false reality. Mm-hmm. Like, and I say that it's kind of like if we're living in a simulation. And I mean, we got that clip ready, guys? All right. Yeah, if we could play that.
In novel after novel, story after story, to name two in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly, I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I'm going to be very candid with you. I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid slave state world. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a different, very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I'm willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu. Perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words, I submit that these impressions are valid and significant. And I will even say this, such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
All right, you saw that clip from Philip K. Dick, and the reason I play it is because I think about 25 years later, Paul Joseph Watson, 2013, he reported on this thing the University of Bonn discovered where they realized the cosmic rays hitting the Earth were very uniform, and it gave us like probably the best proof that we have that maybe the universe is kind of like a simulation that was artificially structured. So let's play that clip.
A recent scientific study undertaken by the University of Bonn in Germany suggests that the universe could be one giant computer simulation. Moore's law dictates that computing power doubles approximately every 2 years, and eventually we're going to reach the stage where computers can artificially create a virtual reality which is indistinguishable from our own, which begs the question, how do we know it hasn't already been done? You've probably heard of Plato's allegory of the cave, the limitation of people's perceptions and sensual ability, restricted to make them believe in a reality that is no more than an illusion. Now, this is the cosmic incarnation of that principle. Here's Wired magazine. Cosmic rays offer clue our universe could be a computer simulation. If recent measurements of cosmic ray particles are correct, then we may have the first evidence that the universe as we know it is really a giant computer simulation. And basically, what these scientists discovered is that when cosmic rays fly through the universe, the energy that they lose is, quote, consistent with the kind of boundary that you'd find if there was an underlying lattice governing the limits of a simulator. And in this article, they make an analogy with a chessboard. Cosmic rays behave like chess pieces on a chessboard. You can't move them less than one whole space on this lattice structure which they've measured. So these uniform rules governing the movement and behavior of cosmic rays suggest that they are performing as they would if they were trapped inside a giant simulation. Now, they've only got the computing power at present to test this on a tiny scale, so it's far from conclusive. but the early indications really do suggest that our entire universe could be nothing more than a computer-generated simulation. And the New Scientist interviewed Silath Bean, the chief scientist there at the University of Bonn, involved in this project. And the article concludes that, quote, "The answer, statistically speaking, is that we're more likely to be living in a simulation."
Now, you saw that clip, and what really interests me about it is that you have this researchers that says that, yes, we're most likely living in a simulation. You also see astrophysicists that kind of push this idea of multiverses, that we have parallel universes and that. And I like these concepts, but the problem is that scientists can never prove this. You know, it's not something you can prove. What's that word I'm looking for? It starts with an E, empirically. So they're speculating. But then you see all these secularists attacking Christians that saying, oh, you're speculating, you can never prove God. So it's like we got this weird thing where it's like there's this false dilemma between scientists and Christians, but they're doing this. It's like the scientists are basically doing what they're accusing the Christians of doing. But briefly, I want to bring up that we are having this money bomb going on. If you'd love to donate, kind of get us, support us, get us on satellite, get us to reach 400 million people. I think we're already reaching 1.6 billion people potentially on social media. We want to get that number even higher, get more people involved, get them, wake them up, get them, get us on TV and whatnot. You can reach, you can call us at 888-253-3139. We got operators standing by. We got all these products available. We got free shipping for the duration of the money bomb, 20% off Survival Shield, 20% off Super Male, 20% off Brain Force. And let me keep going. It's even better. 15% off Deep Cleanse, 15% off Secret 12, and 50% off Oxy Powder. So we got all these great products, and if you'd love to donate to our money bomb, once again, the number is 888-253-3139. Now, Rob Jacobson, so, you so you introduced me to this book earlier this year that kind of got me interested in this whole concept, and I didn't finish the book, unfortunately. You gave me crap for that, but... That's what I got out of the book is this author complained that, you got all these astrophysicists that are just speculating.
Yeah, these guys are, just to clear up what we're talking about. First of all, the book that we're talking about is called Farewell to Reality by Jim Baggett, and I really enjoyed this book. It's a very interesting read. He basically clears up what we do know about physics and what we don't know about physics and what the difference between actual physics and science is and what Baggett himself considers to be quote-unquote fairy tale physics. And he makes it very clear that while, concepts like particle physics is very real, we could experiment and have empirical evidence of the results of these experiments. String theory, it's just a theory, and it always has been a theory. And these scientists have been speculating over this stuff for decades, not for a few years. Since around the 60s, they started really going hot and heavy about this string theory, and they still haven't stopped. I mean, we have celebrity physicists like Brian Greene, who still publish book after book talking about string theory. I mean, he never says that there's any proof to any multiverse or anything like that, or M theory or membranes or anything like this that is a result of string theory. All they know is that there's a mathematical phenomenon going on, and it's producing what is called these Calabi-Yau shapes, 10-dimensional shapes, through mathematical equations. And that's as far as we got. And they say, because these mathematical equations forming these geometrical shapes are possible, therefore our universe is made of 10 dimensions. But it goes further than that. They're saying since there are multiple of these different shapes that are formed, that means that there must be multiple universes formed. It's a guess, basically what they're doing. They're making it up. There's no way to test for another universe. I mean, what are we going to send some kind of probe into space, never to see it again, go through the quote-unquote portal, which we know they're, or some say they are attempting to open next week at CERN, the giant science project that goes on, the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because it kind of reminds me of what they call the Fermi paradox, where it's like we only have 5 senses as human beings. There could be way more out there that we can't sense, we can't perceive. I mean, it's like, what the Fermi paradox was basically. Let me read this. I found an interesting article on ImageGur, strangely enough, that said, define the Fermi paradox as, let's say that we have an anthill in the middle of the forest, and right next to the anthill, we're building a 10-lane superhighway. And the question is, would the ants be able to understand what a 10-lane superhighway is? Would the ants be able to understand the technology and the intentions of the beings building the highway next to them?
Exactly. And that brings us back to the original point, which is, is it possible that we're living in some kind of elaborate computer simulation?
Yeah. That reminds me like there's like a Star Trek Next Generation episode I saw as a kid where it's like some guy came alive from the hologram, right? Mm-hmm. And he tried to take over the ship. Mm-hmm. But they tricked him into living in a simulation within the hologram where he thought he was free and he was traveling the universe, mm-hmm. but he was in a simulation the entire time. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I think the episode is called Ship in a Bottle, which I thought was very fitting. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do we know that our universe, our reality, is contained in a superstructure itself? I mean, that really fits in really well with Christianity and other world religions, that we're a structure within a structure. And it was like Immanuel Kant who brought up the point. He saw that they were going to try to use reason to destroy religion. Mm-hmm. But he brought up the point that where does mathematics come from? Where does morality come from? He said that it was wise to assume that there was a God because you'd assume there was a morality somewhere. Mm-hmm. Even with world religions, like you could have a native tribe that's lost out in Southeast Asia that's never heard Christianity or anything like that. But what we have is cultures that still have this, what we call kind of an absolute morality, where various cultures that in the world that even if they don't communicate with one another, mm-hmm. they still have these strange similarities in morality. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, lying and being a coward, that's not seen as a virtue in any culture in the world, as far as I know. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's true, and as long as we constrict our thoughts to, the status quo, and that's impossible, and I know from a textbook that this guy said this, we'll never be able to. Well, I mean, as individuals, maybe one or two of us will be able to, expand our minds to the fact that we can think about these things and say, okay, is it possible? I'm not uncomfortable to think about the fact that we may be in a computer simulation. Like, that's just kind of a strange concept for a lot of people, probably. However, if you don't engage in that kind of thinking, if you don't engage in this kind of out of the box thinking, which might
that's the problem with science right now. Is like they got too much of this dogma. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear Darwinism, but you don't hear something similar called Einsteinism or Newtonism. Because Darwinism has an ideology behind it that goes beyond science. It's about attacking Christianity.
Exactly. It's as deep as any religion there is.
Yeah. Even though, strangely enough, the biggest proponents of evolution back when Darwin came out with his theory was actually Christians. People were like, wow, this is telling us how God did this, mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything in the Bible that refutes it, as far as I know. I mean, it's like as far as I know, it just says that we came from dust and we returned to the dust. Mm-hmm. Now, I do have secular issues with evolution. I'm sure you do as well.
Well, of course. I mean, first of all, I believe there was an experiment in the early 30s which actually challenged Darwin's theory entirely, which had to do with stick bugs, stick insects. And they proved by cutting open these birds' bellies, like 60,000 of them or something, that the bird selected the hidden twig insect just as readily as it selected every other insect to eat. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the assumption that it changed its form to hide in the tree to protect itself was proven wrong. So, I mean, that experiment right there really challenges Darwin's theory as actually being even scientifically credible at all. But here we are in the universities. If you don't believe in Darwinism, you're going to be blacklisted.
Hey, you told me you visited, I think, a Smithsonian, right? Where it was like the whole evolutionary exhibit was like just paintings.
Well, yeah. If you ever go, and I'm sure there's plenty, anybody who ever goes into the basement or the evolution section of the Museum of Natural History, get ready for an Orwellian time if you've ever had one. I mean, here we have velvet rope protecting murals on a wall of as if they're actual museum exhibits. Here's a artist's rendition of anthropological, whatever, those prehistoric man that they say, quote unquote, are the missing link. And it's like, and now for the ultimate proof, the bones of Lucy. And you have like these 3 little trinket bones in this thick glass. And you're supposed to believe that this woman or this fragment of a skeleton represents our collection of scientific knowledge on how we moved from the apes all the way up to humanity.
Well, what I found interesting is like the scientists, they'll get a fossil and they'll debate over whether it's a new species or if it's a subspecies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just arbitrary.
Right. And it comes down to the fact that they, at the end of the day, when a new piece of evidence or a new piece of scientific fact comes into play, they're going to speculate just like everybody else ad nauseum, but they're going to pat each other on the back just like doctor. Like their little degree over there earns them some sort of, your words, even though they're wrong, but they're credible. It doesn't make any sense. We live in this paradigm of licensed deception. If you get the right license, you could deceive people and it's acceptable. So, that's where we are, especially scientists and others.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with a lot of this, what they're pushing, but it's like, how do you know what they're pushing's real or not? It's like we're being told it's real when reality is they're just speculating like anybody else.
And at the end of the day, when the rubber hits the road, we look at where does science take us? Okay, we get a technology, and most of our technology, the way I see it right now, is detrimental and wasting our time. Like phones that connect us and spy on us. Yeah, we get a lot of gizmos on it, but is this really the advancement we were looking for as mankind? I mean, shouldn't we be off the power grid already? Shouldn't we all have our own independent
Yeah, instead we got 3-year-olds that are losing their eyesight because they're on the cell phones all day.
Exactly. Is this really the technology, the progression that we were looking for? Is this somebody else's, sick idea of progression while the rest of us are still on the power grid? We still are on the water grid. None of us, we still have municipal water, and there are still people like, oh, don't put this in the water, don't put that in the water. Well, if we all had the technology to be off the water grid, we wouldn't have to petition these criminal politicians who are not going to stop putting fluoride in the. They're criminals. You could petition criminals up and down until you're blue in the face.
It's amazing to me that so many people, they watch TV or they watch movies and this and that. And I do too, so don't get me wrong. But
right.
It's like people are like, oh, we're so bored, we got to go and watch a movie to. The whole reality we live in is way bigger than any other movie I've ever seen. Right now I'm reading a book on Hernan Cortez and the conquistadors and how they kind of took over the Aztec Empire. Just read, I'm in the 3rd chapter of the book. I'm like, this is way more amazing than any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, every bit of a history book I ever read is far more absorbing because somehow it's real. It's real. And you get a sense that no human could have thought up this story. There's something greater about the story.
That's what I feel about the Bible, now that you bring it up. It's like, if you reject the Bible, you kind of have to reject the fact that whoever wrote it was lying or they were just making stuff up. And I'm like, when you read it, I don't get that at all.
No, exactly. You get the sense of a larger, and I don't mean to dumb it down a little bit, but last year reading a bunch of books, I took kind of a break and went to a few fictional novels. And the contrast was amazing because the fictional novels that I read were like paper thin, even though they're very celebrated novels, very popular. Mm-hmm. It was like this paper thin. You could tell that, even though it's like, oh, the universe, it's such a wide world this person wrote and everybody loves it and so on and so forth. And there are so many characters. It's nothing compared to actual history. Like, it's as light as a feather compared to reading a real book.
Yeah. Yeah. And now you bring up books, video games as well. I saw some videos on Minecraft. Have you ever heard of that game?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you got these you're a player in the game, you can build this whole world in Minecraft is like built out of like, it's like a simulation of the planet Earth. It's all built out like, it's like Legos, but it's like built like 140 some different blocks. You know, you got iron blocks, gold blocks, grass blocks, water blocks, all this. You kind of mine through it all, get resources. But what I realized when I was watching this video on YouTube of the game is that, and I actually did some research on the game, the game world is like randomly created every time you start a new game. It's by computer algorithms. And they have this thing where it's like set up with different biomes. You got desert biome where it's like a desert area where you see more sand blocks. You got ocean biome. That's all ocean biome. And you see fish, aquatic life. And what was interesting to me was the fact that a game world, when they generate it, it's 8 times the size of planet Earth. I mean, there was even a YouTube video series on YouTube, obviously. Kind of said it double there. Where this guy, like, he walked for 30 days straight, like, in-game. Like, it took him 30 days worth of time in the game. So it took him probably 6-8 months playing 2-3 hours a day to go from one side of the game world to the other. And what interests me is that no matter how far you go, it's kind of the same blocks generated. What does that remind you of? The universe. Where it's like astrophysics say that the elements that we found on planet Earth are just like no different than anywhere else in the universe.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of mysteries and a lot of like things we don't understand. In fact, let me refer to this book.
Yeah.
Because he puts an interesting list that I kind of marked out over here of 6, what he calls the Goldilocks enigma. You know, there are 6 enigmas, you know, mysteries that he basically lists in this.
What's the author's name, by the way?
Again, this is Jim Baggett, and it's called Farewell to Reality. And he talks about, the ratio, the force of the electromagnetic force. He talks about density parameter ratio. He talks about cosmological constant. And basically the point of all this is, if any one of these single constants were knocked even a fraction out of place, including, and he goes on and on. There's a few of them. There are 6 of them he lists. And if any one of these is knocked out of place, even by a hair, life would not even exist in this universe as far as we can tell. And those constants must remain.
It's funny you bring this up because I was reading, I think it's like with Richard Dawkins and all them, they kind of brought up this theory that out of response to the fact that the universe seems to be designed for life, it's like, well, this could be one of millions of universes. And the universes, there's lots of universes that just don't support life at all. Right. It's just by chance. They're basically saying there's just like an evolution, survival of the fittest of universes.
Right, yeah. Or we just so happen to witness life in this universe because we happen to be alive. Like, these are creative people making up creative excuses to keep a job. I mean, let's be real. I mean, they're like, oh, my God, my theory's falling apart. I may have to get work in another place soon. Well, I got it. We live there's millions of dead universes. We only know life because we live in one of the living ones. I mean, this is really what these people
That's speculation all over again.
It's not just speculation.
And they talk crap to people for believing about God.
Yeah, it's beyond speculation. It's actually damaging thought. I mean, it's mental illness is what that is for real, because they're not adding anything to the dialogue by saying, well, maybe maybe in other universes, gravity works opposite. Let's have 50 years of scientific speculation.
But where's the gravity code? Where's all the stuff? What's the source code for a universe? We have all these, what they call natural laws, but what's telling all these natural laws to be that way?
Exactly. And, if we have to go along with the status quo and say, oh, no, well, let's look at the whatever they call it, the theory of the multiverse where we're the living one and there's a bunch of dead ones and it just so happens to be that. We'll never, ever get to the actual meat of the problem, which is what you're suggesting. Why are there these cosmological constants all over the place that are imperative for us to be alive? Why? Well, we won't know that if we spend 50 years writing thousands of books on the string theory. We'll be wasting probably all of our great minds.
It's like Einstein wasted like half his life looking for that constant, right?
Yeah. He's looking for the universal, the universal constant that melded the quantum theory with his theory of relativity. And he never discovered it, you know, but he really wanted to. And it's just like this. I mean, at least Einstein was looking for something that might be real in this universe as opposed to an imaginary universe.
Yeah, it's like science. And by its definition, science it's atheistic in the fact that you're looking at for natural explanations for things. But then they try to go beyond that where it's like they're using science to explain what's outside the universe. Like, oh, there's nothing out there. And it's
their
like
own speculation, their own imagination.
Yeah, it's philosophy. That's not science.
No, it's I don't. It could be philosophy. Maybe.
Oh, I'm talking about materialism. But
yeah. I mean, is multiverse even a philosophy, or is it more of a mathematical phenomenon?
Yeah, it's just a game in your head.
Yeah, who knows? But the thing is they've wasted so much time. Really, like, oh, we must find the multiverse. We're on to something. And they were on to nothing. And they really wasted a lot of people's time for 50 years when they could have been a sub-subject. Now what's going on in science is they're about to fire off the CERN Large Hadron Collider. And that's going to go on next week. And as we all know, that what they do is they get two hadron particles, usually protons, and they propel them towards each other at near light speeds, and next week it's going to be the highest energy rating they've ever tried to fire it off in the history of CERN, the history of particle accelerators. And so, some people that one CERN scientist was saying, this could possibly open a portal in which we could observe if a particle of the portal, the other dimension comes through. So now all you have these string theorists, right?
Yeah,
crossing their fingers. There you have all these people right now. I'm telling you, they're right now crossing their fingers because this is and it says it. Baggett actually mentions the experiment in this book, and look how old this book is. He actually mentions the experiment they're about to fire off next week in this book. And he says this is the string theory's final chance for them to prove finally one way or another, whether string theory is real or not. Because if a portal opens up...
It'll probably end up being a portal to hell and all these... It'd be like Doom, that video game Doom, where all these like freaking devils and stuff keep coming out.
The portal will open up and there's your multiverse. Welcome. I mean, these people they're literally playing with fire, but it's like, and you know how hot that Large Hadron Collider gets. These people are playing with beyond super fire,
There's another theory that I want to briefly mention. Let's see if I can find it. Got them all written down. Oh, it's called the transition hypothesis, where it's basically once an intelligence gets obviously intelligent enough, it's like they create a black hole and they leave our visible macro universe. So basically what this theory is suggesting is we can't see a lot of life out in the universe because once life gets highly advanced enough, they're disappearing in somewhere else. And that's why all the black holes are just remnants of them. But I bring this up because it's like, CERN, it's going to end up making a black hole, but it's not because we're going to go somewhere better.
Right. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, these people must be drunk with power right now. They must be.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, but let's just do it anyway.
Yeah, sort of like
there was I think it was like the atomic test where they're like they weren't even sure. They were like, this might even blow a hole in the world.
They thought it was going to set fire to the entire atmosphere.
It's like, oh well, we got funding, so we got to do it anyway. That's how destructive. That's what goes back to what I was saying earlier about democide. That's how destructive government is.
Well, it's sort of like these scientists get so obsessed and so absorbed in their work, in their project to find the answer, to get to the end result, to finish the project. They forget the ethical issues with the project in the course of actually creating it. So,
so it goes back to this great filter thing. It's like they say that, well, why don't we notice any life out in the universe? Well, maybe there was life, but they all had governments just like ours, and they all did.
Exactly. And they created CERN, and they all got sucked into the portal, Maybe these string theorists. And that's the other thing. If these string theorists are such experts, wouldn't you think that they would have some sort of air of safety about them? Hey, I know about hot water. Don't put your hand in the hot water. Or, I know about this. Don't do that. I am an expert of string theory. Don't open a portal to another dimension. You might be sucking all the air out of this universe. Or you might be,
just like in Spaceballs,
Yeah. You might be, a particle might fly through that portal that doesn't match the dimensions and physics of our universe, creating a who knows what. Why aren't these people saying, wait, stop. There just might be another thing, but wait, we don't know enough about about this stuff. All we know are these stupid equations and these shapes, these hundreds of thousands of shapes, and the M theory and membrane theory. And every one of these theories are speculation. Every one of these theories is, for example, it's like derivatives. It's like the banking derivatives. They create a banking product, and then they derive other products off of that to make more money off of the original investment. It's the same thing with string theory. They come out with one theory, and one theory, because it's a mathematical, it's like mathematically, perfect, beautiful, or whatever they want to describe it. They then find other theories and other mathematical theories to build on top of it. And before you know it, they have this pile of derived theories, M theory, this theory, that all started with string theory. And it is, wadded up all of our scientific knowledge, all of our resources when it comes to thought and discovery in humanity, and really gave us what we're going to witness next week, which is these people drunk with power, delusional.
We got about 15 seconds left.
All right, well, they're going to fire off a dangerous weapon or a dangerous
It might be the last time you and I talk to each other.
Could be. See you on the other side.
All right. Well,
farewell.
Well, appreciate your time, Jacobson.
Thank you, Kit, for having me today.
Yeah. And once again, this is the Infowars Money Bomb 2015. If you want to donate, just give us a call, 888-253-3139. Again, that's 888-253-3139.
This is an American president. Just add puppet, then vote and repeat every 4 years.
Introducing Secret 12, the new Infowars Life Vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and cannot be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical-grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
There's no doubt that our country is in serious trouble right now. And if you're wondering how on earth we ever got in this situation, well, I'll tell you how. When the Democrats showed their true colors, you got angry and you elected Republicans. And then when the Republicans showed their true colors, you got angry and elected Democrats. And when anyone suggested to you that both parties were corrupt and that neither side were looking out for your best interest, you acted like they were crazy. But the real definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's why it is vitally important that you wake up, America, and break the matrix. Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv, and The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.